The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you. It's haunting me. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a ghost of you and me. Of you and me. All these whispers.
My name is James Hershey. Right back.
All these shadows in my mind. From my reflection, I can't find. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a
That ought to
ghost
do
of
it.
you and me. Of you and me. Don't let 'em take you away. Don't let 'em bring you down inside. It's just the mirrors in your mind. Don't let 'em bring you down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
As you know, this month we are doing our annual Halloween Month Spectacular, where every show this month is going to be on a very scary subject. Now, when someone thinks of the word scary, they automatically think of monsters, ghosts, and demons, that kind of thing. Now, anyone can tell you that we absolutely love talking about monsters, ghosts, and demons. But those are not the only things that are scary. And some things are a hell of a lot scarier. On tonight's episode, we will be discussing a potential end-of-the-world scenario. There is a plan that has been devised by NASA to supply a portion of the country with electricity for at least the next 10,000 years. Now you might say, wow, that's awesome. What's so sinister and so scary about that? It sounds like a great thing. Well, the problem is how they are planning to generate that electricity. Now, I'll explain this in great detail a little bit later on in the show. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the source of that energy. The literal ticking time bomb underneath the western half of the United States. Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming is the home of Old Faithful and many other amazing geothermal displays of the massive power of the Earth. It is also home to the Yellowstone caldera, or as some of you might know it, the Yellowstone supervolcano. The caldera is massive, measuring around 34 miles by 45 miles. And the caldera was formed by the combined efforts of three massive eruptions of the supervolcano. The Huckleberry Ridge eruption took place about 2.1 million years ago and formed the Island Park caldera and the Huckleberry Ridge tuff. The Mesa Falls eruption took place about 1.3 million years ago and created the Henry's Fork caldera and the Mesa Falls tuff. And the Lava Creek eruption, which took place around 640,000 years ago, created the Yellowstone caldera and the Lava Creek tuff. For those of you who do not know what a caldera is formed when a volcano erupts so suddenly and violently that it empties out its magma very, very quickly. in one massive and awe-inspiring explosion. This rapid emptying of the magma chamber causes the overlying land to collapse down into the now empty magma chamber. Okay, this forms a geographic depression that we call a caldera. And over the past 18 million years, this area has generated a lot of volcanic eruptions. Some very, very violent, and some that are less violent, that are basically just rivers of magma flowing out. The more violent eruptions are caused because the magma in the chamber contains gases that stay dissolved because of the massive pressure that is in the chamber. If the pressure is released and the pressure falls beyond a certain point because of some kind of geological shift, like an earthquake or something like that, then some of those gases will undissolve, so to speak, and they will bubble out, and they will cause the magma to expand. Now this causes a chain reaction, and if the pressure is reduced again, more than likely this will be caused by something like the upper crust of the magma chamber actually blowing off. If that happens, then the gases will quickly bubble up, and the magma will expand almost instantly, and this causes a massive gas explosion. At least a dozen of these violently explosive eruptions were so massive that they were classified as supervolcano eruptions. The last one of these super eruptions was the Lava Creek eruption, which happened around 640,000 years ago. And in that eruption, it actually ejected 240 cubic miles of rock, dust, and volcanic ash into the sky. And yes, I did say 240 cubic miles of rock, dust, and volcanic ash. That is an enormous amount of debris. And this actually leads us to our next little topic of discussion here, which is why these supervolcanoes can cause an extinction level event. Okay, now imagine the 240 cubic miles of dust being blasted into the sky. Those dust particles are so fine and so light, and they are thrown so high that they just kind of hang out up there in the sky, and they block out the majority of the sunlight. This causes surface temperatures to drop, and without the sunlight, the plants will die. With the plants dead, the animals that eat the plants, and pretty much all vegans, will die. With no herbivores left, eventually the things that eat the plants will die. Now this is admittedly a worst case scenario, and it depends on a massive amount of dust being thrown up into the sky. There are cases where we have had these supervolcano eruptions before. They have put up a lot of dust into the air, and it has eventually dissolved down, and life has survived on Earth. It does take a hit. Some species will go extinct. There's a lot of suffering, a lot of hunger, a lot of pain, but sometimes life goes on. If it's a massive, massive eruption and puts enough debris up into the air, it could cause pretty much all life on Earth to die. You will also have anyone who isn't killed by the initial blast. While they are starving, they will also be suffering from a horrible lung disease that is caused by inhaling the volcanic ash. Now, the official scientific name for this is annoyingly long and almost unpronounceable. But here it goes. It is pneumonal tremor microscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. Try saying that 3 times while you're drunk, right? Now, this broken down simply means that it is a pneumonia that is caused by inhaling microscopic pieces of the silicate material from the volcanoes that gets lodged in the lungs, and in severe cases it can even shred the lungs up. It's pretty nasty. Now this disease is almost identical to coal miner's lung, or some people call it black lung. So it's something that we are familiar with, and we are familiar with the effects of it, and it is deadly. Now the even worse news here is that the Yellowstone super eruption usually happens about every 600,000 years. And since it's been 640,000 since the last one, we're about 40,000 years overdue. So there is the background information on the supervolcano and how it just might kill us all. But remember, in the beginning, I said that NASA had a plan, that they were going to power part of the country for 10,000 years. Now wait till you hear this plan. You are going to flip your lid. You're just simply not going to believe that this is the real plan. But I promise you, this is their actual plan. What they plan to do is to drill 10 kilometers down into the volcano. And once they get down there, they're going to pump huge amounts of water into the supervolcano to cool it off. The idea here is that when you heat water, you obviously generate steam. They will use this steam to turn turbines, which will produce the electricity. And also, by shooting the water down into the supervolcano, they will cool it off and thus prevent it from erupting. Now this sounds like something straight out of a superhero movie. Like there's no way this could be real, but it 100% is. Now there are three possible scenarios here. First scenario is what they believe will happen, and that is that they will be able to delay the eruption of the supervolcano and produce a whole bunch of electricity that will last for over 10,000 years, which I'm sure someone will be more than happy to sell to you for a very nice profit. Now, anyone that is familiar with steam engines can tell you that whenever you're dealing with steam, there's always the potential for catastrophic failure with lethal results. But that's option number one. They pump water down there, they cool off the volcano, they use the steam to create electricity, easy as pie. No worries. Now, the second option is that this foolishness will actually cause the supervolcano to erupt, plunging us all into a fight for survival, in an end of life as we know it kind of situation. The third possible scenario is that they drill down and nothing happens. They drill down, they shoot the water down there, and nothing happens. I don't think that has any chance of being true. I think that one should be thrown right off the table, honestly, because there's zero chance that if you drill down into a volcano and dump a bunch of water in it, that nothing's going to happen. Something is going to happen. That's a violent chemical reaction of water turning to steam in a superheated and super pressurized environment. Guaranteed something's happening. So we'll chuck that one right off the old pile. So what are the facts here? What makes NASA think that they can actually pull this off? I mean, besides the idea that they went to the moon and they're planning a trip to Mars and they've sent rovers to Mars and all this, they kind of walk around with a little bit of swagger at NASA. I've got some experience with NASA myself, and I can tell you they kind of walk around with a little bit of swagger because they're some of the smartest people in the world. They really are. I mean, NASA is more than just the people that are going up in space. You have all the control people, you have all the engineers, and then you have the eggheads, what they call them, which is like the Mensa kids, the people that work in the think tanks that come up with the ideas for NASA, that the engineers will make actually work. What makes them think they can pull this off? When 2017, NASA did a study, and the results of that study suggested that by cooling the magma chamber by 35%, they could actually stop the supervolcano from erupting. Now, if this data is correct, and they do everything just right, they might be able to keep the supervolcano from erupting for as long as they continue dumping water into it. The scary part is if they make even the smallest mistake in the day after day after day, year after year after year operation of doing this, they could actually trigger the volcano to erupt. Now, another view of this comes from the U.S. Geological Services, the USGS. They issued a statement, and this is what it said, and I quote, "Notwithstanding the enormous expense and technological difficulties in drilling through hot, mushy rock, drilling is unlikely to have much effect. At near magmatic temperatures and pressures, any hole would rapidly become sealed by minerals crystallizing from the natural fluids that are present at those depths." Now that is the quote. But I guess the question here is, will the hole be sealed rapidly enough to prevent the loss of pressure that is needed to trigger the supervolcanic eruption that I was talking about earlier. And if that hole seals rapidly, what happens to all the steam that is generated from dumping the water in? Because if the hole seals back up, the steam can't get out. And what effect will that steam have on the pressure inside the magma chamber? Will it cause it to explode that way? There's a good chance. Anybody knows when you're working with a steam engine, if you get it too hot and you get too much pressure and there's no way for that steam to vent, the pressure builds up inside your engine and it explodes. And it explodes magnificently. Could we be looking at the same kind of situation down in that magma chamber? If that hole seals back up and you've introduced all that steam, which creates a tremendous amount of pressure, what's that going to do? You think it'll make it explode? I think so. I think there's a very good chance. So in my mind, there's just a whole lot more ways that this can go terribly wrong with the introduction of the steam. Frankly, I don't see how they could pull this off. Because if what the USGS is saying is true, if that hole is going to seal up very, very quickly, that means the steam can't escape. So even if it doesn't cause a massive explosion, there's really no point in doing it, because if the steam can't escape, then the steam can't very well turn the turbines to create the electricity, can it? It has to kind of get out of the volcano to do that. So if it can't escape, you're not making any electricity. The whole thing is pointless. And all you're doing is risking blowing up half of America and possibly sending the entire world into a nuclear winter that probably most of us won't survive. Because the scary fact is, here's something that a lot of people don't know. Let's say something like this was to happen and all the crops died. The world food supply, the reserves for the entire world, could only last for about 74 days. After that point, you're either starving to death or you're going to be eating the family pet and your neighbors to stay alive. So my question is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk of plunging the entire world into that kind of extinction level event, or potential extinction level event? Let's say it that way, because there's no guarantee that it would kill everybody. It'll kill a lot of people, but it might not kill everybody. Is it worth it? Especially when there's a good chance that you're not even going to get steam that way. I mean, you'll get steam, but you might not be able to get it out of the ground. Because if that hole seals up, it's over. So is it worth it? Well, we have to look at the fact that this volcano is going to erupt. It's not like if we leave it alone, it'll behave itself and won't blow up. There will be another super volcano eruption from Yellowstone, and it will be in the near future. Now that's speaking on geological terms, so that could be 10, 20, 50,000 years from now it could go off. But it could go off tomorrow. We're already 40,000 years overdue from the average time it goes off. Another scary thing here is there are literally hundreds of earthquakes that happen in that area every year. All it takes is the right earthquake in the right spot to cause that shift I was talking about that will allow those gases to bubble up and make that puppy blow. So it's definitely going to blow up. It's just a matter of when. You're going to have another massively violent explosion and eruption from that volcano. Guaranteed, 100%. So the question is, do we try to do something about it now? Or do we do nothing and not risk it going off early and just hope that it doesn't go off until we're dead and it's somebody else's problem? I don't have an answer for you. This is one of those situations where there is no good answer. One of those damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of deals. But it definitely gives you something to think about. A lot of times in life, I'm kind of a risk taker, but I don't know on this one, because the consequences are horrifying. if you're wrong. If you screw up, it's a big one. And you could kill millions of people, maybe even billions. That's kind of a sobering idea. But if you're right, you just saved the world, baby. You're a hero. Now, one bit of good news here is that the Yellowstone National Park is actually protected from geothermal resource development by law. So that means that the companies that would actually have the ability to do this are currently not allowed to do it. It's against the law. Now, of course, with giant piles of money to be made, it really isn't beyond the imagination to see a bunch of congressional palms heavy with cash and a new law in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that we can do about it. If they decide to do this and Congress passes it, I mean, I guess the only thing you can do is call your congressperson and say, don't do this if you think it shouldn't be done, or call them and say, do it if you think it should be done. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy now. I'd like to get his opinion on this plan by NASA and see what he would do if it was his choice to make. If somebody came up and said, okay, Old Boy, it's your call. What are we going to do? What would your decision be? I think that'd be pretty interesting. And I'll listen to what he has to say, and I'll think on my own while he's doing it. And then when I come back, I will give you my decision on what I would do in this situation. And on the YouTube channel, when I put the replay up of this show, I'd like the listeners to write down in the comments section what you would do. Would you go for it and pump the water down there and try to stop it from going off? Or would you leave it the hell alone so it don't take a chance of blowing up? This ought to be interesting to find out. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy now and get his opinion. So, Old Boy, take it away, brother.
And thank you, brother. This was a very interesting one because I didn't know how I was going to do this one because I don't ever usually do. This is more of a science thing and nature. So, I mean, it's interesting, but it's not my thing. But the thing is, the reason why he talks about Yellowstone, and I think that's interesting, is I live in Southern California. Up Northern California is Yosemite. It's pretty much the same situation. A super volcano that can go off at any time. It's been a long time since, I think it's been over, about 800,000 years for Yosemite. So we're worried about that one here in California because these super volcanoes, what people need to realize is if these hit, and if it's strong enough, you're done. It covers the whole world with ash. Unless you have now, the government might survive. They have people might, if they have underground shelters. James might survive because he's kind of into that stuff, and I might. But most people won't survive because you can't breathe. The animals won't live; they'll die. And it's it's not like what you think. You ever seen a fire? It's like snow. Like the ashes cover it like snow, and it snows like ash. But it's not snow. It's just ash. You can't breathe. Like you said, it's like dying from black lung. Your lungs get full of. It's like smoking constantly. It's no stopping. You're inhaling smoke. Basically, your lungs can't take it. You just can't filter it. So it turns black. You die from blackened lung, basically, like you would in coal miners, like he was talking about earlier. That would make sense because you can't see the sky and you just have ash. It's all you're going to be breathing because there's nothing else. Unless, like I said, you have a bomb shelter or you're rich or you're in the military that have already ready for this if this just happens. Trust me, the military and the government have everything ready just in case something happens, like something like that. Or an earthquake, because like the San Andreas Fault's right underneath where I'm at. I'm actually on the good side of it because if it breaks, it's like right down in LA and I'm up in the desert. So the way it works is like you go down a hill and you go up a mountain. So when I'm up the mountain on the right side of the Cajon Pass, the San Andreas Fault is, and if that cracks, they'll fall like right after LA, like in San Bernardino, Rancho Cucamonga area will be gone. It'll be ocean. That's something we're also worried about too, because say the San Andreas doesn't crack, it just shakes. It can set off Yosemite because the San Andreas Fault is huge. Maybe we could do a show about that too one day, and we will, and talk about that because that's another massive earthquake that can end a lot of things in this side of the country. But what I was saying is, unless you have money and you're a millionaire, or you're smart and you really made something for, like, you're one of those preppers, that there's people really like that waiting for a war to happen, or something like this, a national disaster, you probably won't survive too long. Now, it could be mild, but still, even mild would probably destroy half the country, or more than that, probably half the world. And it still would be bad. It would get in the oceans. Like, you guys have seen, like, have you ever seen the like mud, and it builds up? That's all the oceans would end up being. It would be like giant things, like a big giant thing of mud, and all the animals and creatures and sea life would die. So there would be a big resource of food would be gone, and a lot of the animals resources of food, because it would get into lakes and rivers, and it would just be giant piles of mud and nasty. You guys seen like lava, but it wouldn't be like hot lava, just nasty sludge. That sludge would be really, you couldn't eat anything, you'd die from it. It'd just kill you. So you would be in a lot of we would be in a lot of trouble if this happened. Let's get to the part where he was talking about NASA. You know, I'm glad they have that law, because they would have already tried to pull this. I think there's two bad scenarios that's going to happen. Either it's going to work or it's not. That's what's going to happen. In our luck, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work right. And it's going to make a reaction, and probably we're going to be in a lot of trouble. But see, the thing is that they're trying to save the world for another 10,000, 15,000 years. Maybe I don't know if it's a bad thing, because this thing is way overdue. It's going to happen anytime. It could happen tonight while we're talking. It could just go off. It could happen in 10,000 years. But if they could prevent it for 10 or 15,000 years, maybe it'd be worth it. I don't know if it's a good idea, because I don't think that's a really good idea either. I think it would just probably blow up in our faces like everything else. I don't think this is a good idea at all, other than maybe saving humanity, and that's a possibility, but you're taking a big risk. That's like dropping a nuclear weapon on one country, and then the country next to it, you're hoping it doesn't get any radiation. That's probably not going to happen. All I could say is I wouldn't do it, but I kind of see why they are trying to do it. But I also think there's a money, like he was talking about, it's a pit of money, that somebody's got to make money some way. And like he was saying, somebody's going to bring you that electricity so you can pay for it at a price. So you, like he was saying, there's going to be always some kind of money out of it. So that's all I could say about that part of it. And I really think it is going to happen one day, because usually when NASA gives people money, they'll find some law, some way to twist something out of this to make it where they can get away with this. And we both know that, James, it's going to happen. They're going to pay a certain amount to change the law, and they're going to come and do whatever they want. And there's going to be a big problem. People are going to try to stop it. And you're going to have, like Standing Rock, what happened there. And it's just going to be a big mess. And if they do it, I really believe we're probably going to regret it. So, but there's nothing to do. There's nothing you can do about any of these national disasters. There's nothing you can do about an earthquake or a volcano, a hurricane. All you can do is try to get prepared for it, but there's no way preparing for a super volcano. You're probably going to be screwed, because most people don't know how to survive. Like James was saying, a lot of people don't know how to survive. They live day by day. And I'll get it. I do that too sometimes. James is a survivor. I will tell you that right now. He's probably got something buried in his backyard where he can go and survive this. And he will. Trust me on this. And I'm glad. And he's just that kind of person, guys. You could give him, he's like a MacGyver, a 6'5", 300-pound MacGyver. You give him a buck knife and a rope, and he'll make a tank out of it some way. And I'm exaggerating, but he is really good at all this stuff, man. He knows how to survive. He knows how to fish. I don't know what he's going to fish out of a lake of sludge, but he'll find something to eat. He knows how to grow stuff, potatoes. He knows how to make vegetables. He'll figure. He's got a bunch of rations for 30 years. He would be fine. He would know how to survive. Most people don't. They have maybe 15 days worth of food if they're lucky. Maybe 5 days of food. And what you want to know is, how would we survive that? The way I survive it, I already prep stuff. I have stuff here. And I know how to defend myself if it comes down to that. I know how to track. I know how to start fires. But in that situation, I don't know. I could survive the rioting and the looting because I have weapons and guns, but I don't know if I could survive the air. I'm not, even if I have gas masks, I don't have a hidden department in the ground. Maybe I should make one, but then I would be like, I don't have millions of dollars since stuff's expensive, and I don't know where I'm going to put it in the middle of the desert. So that's all I could say on that, James. You go ahead and see what you think about that.
There's no way to really realistically prevent it long term, a lot of these disasters. So what you have to try to do is you have to try to mitigate the aftermath, the effect that it has on you. With a supervolcano, if you're in the blast radius, you're dead. If you're within 100 miles or so of the blast radius, you're probably dead as well. Because you're going to have superheated air, you're going to have really thick ash that you're trying to breathe. If you're a decent distance outside of that radius, then your main problem is going to be trying to feed yourself and keep yourself warm. Because if it's a severe enough eruption and you have sunlight being blocked out, and that whole doomsday scenario I went through earlier happens, your problem is food. And your problem is also clean drinking water, because you're going to have ash that gets down into the water. So you're going to have to be able to filter your water. So you should invest in some good water filters. That's number one. If you do not have the money to invest in good filters, don't worry, because you can build your own filter. I'm going to go through really quickly a very, very efficient and good water filter that is very, very cheap. And you can make it out of something as easy as a 2-liter bottle. Basically what you want to do is you want to cut the bottom off the 2-liter bottle. Turn it upside down, cut the bottom off. And you're going to put the cap on, because you don't want everything you put in the bottle to fall back out the bottom yet. You're going to start layering in the bottom. You're going to do sand, then you're going to do a fine gravel, some kind of grass or moss, something like that. And you're going to want to start yourself a campfire outside in a burn pit or in a driveway, anywhere. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure you don't catch a bunch of stuff on fire when you're doing it other than what you want to burn. And you're going to want to burn some wood in it. You're going to want to make some charcoal. Now, you can't just go to the store and buy like a bag of charcoal. That's not going to work, because that charcoal has lighter fluid and other chemicals on it. A lot of it does, and that could not be very pleasant for your system. You're going to want to make your own charcoal. The way you make your own charcoal is you simply set wood on fire, and you let it burn down. You're going to have those little black pieces at the end. You want to break those up, and you want to layer those into your filter. So you're going to do alternating layers of sand, fine gravel, moss or grass or something like that, and then charcoal, and then repeat all the way up the bottom. Make the layers an inch or two apiece, and just work your way right up to the top of the bottle. Then you take your contaminated water, and you're going to pour in that bottle. It's going to slowly leach its way down, so you're going to have to keep feeding the bottle, little by little. The water is going to leach its way down. You're going to want to make a small hole in the cap that you had put on to make sure nothing fell out. That will allow the water to drip out. Then you put your container underneath that. Your water slowly leaches down, and it will filter out all that volcanic ash and bad stuff in there. Now, once you get your clean water at the end, you still do not want to drink that water, because it could be contaminated with some kind of microbiotic life that could harm you, give you dysentery, those kind of things. So you're going to take your cleaned water, and it's going to look crystal clear, but that does not necessarily mean it's safe. You're going to take your clear water, and you're going to boil that water in a pot of some sort. If you do not have a pot because you have had to leave your home and you're just kind of on the run, then any kind of container will work. Any kind of metal container. You can use even a can, like a Pepsi can or a Coke can or a can of beans or ravioli or whatever that you had that you ate. The empty can, you can boil in that. In a seriously worst case scenario, you can even boil water in a plastic bottle. Now, I know that sounds insane, because you think, well, the fire is just going to burn right through the bottle and all the water is going to fall out. So it's dumb. It's going to put your fire out. But trust me, you can do it. I've done it myself. What you want to do is you want to hold the bottle above the flame. As long as the flame is only touching parts of the bottle that contain liquid, you're fine. It will not burn through it, because the liquid inside will cool the plastic to the point where it doesn't burn and rupture. If you have your flames hit a part of the bottle that does not contain liquid, then it's going to burn through rather quickly. So you want to make sure that it only hits the parts that have the water. So you could use a plastic bottle if you needed to boil it. But that's an easy way of making a water filter for basically free. And you can clean your water and make it to the point where once you boil it, it's safe to drink. So that takes care of water. Water is the #1 priority in any survival situation. Even if you're fully prepped, like I'm prepped for decades, okay, as far as food and stuff goes. But there's no way to reliably store decades worth of water. It just can't realistically be done. It takes up way too much space. So you're going to need filtering. But without that water, one, you will dehydrate and die within 2 or 3 days. But also, all of that food that you prep back, all of that dehydrated stuff you did, you can't do much with it if it's still dehydrated because it's really, really hard. You need the water to bring it back to life, so to speak. The second thing is prep some food. Have food on hand. There's no excuse for not having a long time worth of food. I don't care what kind of budget you're on. You can literally go to the store and buy a pound of spaghetti for under $1. You can buy big boxes, cases of oodles and noodles for like $2. They're like 12 cents a pack or something. Whenever you have the spare money, invest in your future. Things like that will last a long, long time, man. And if you have a little bit of money and you can buy yourself a dehydrator and you can buy yourself a vacuum sealer, then you can really make that stuff last for your entire lifetime. A lot of things, if you prep them correctly, dehydrate them correctly, put an oxygen absorber in with them, and vacuum seal them and store them correctly, can last over 50 years. And you're talking spaghetti, you're talking macaroni noodles, you're talking all kinds of different pastas, you're talking beans, you're talking oatmeal, rice. All of those things you can pick up at the store really, really cheap. And all of those things you can also pick up at the store already dehydrated. Another great idea is instant mashed potatoes. You can buy those all day long for $1 or $2 at the store. And those things are already dehydrated potato flakes. They'll last for a long, long time, and they're really filling. So they'll really fill you up, and you can stretch a lot of meals a long way with those. So to mitigate the problem of not being able to have food, you can't go down to the store and buy food because literally nothing is growing because the sun has been blocked out. If you want to keep yourself alive, you have to already have food. It's a simple equation. Or you have to not mind the taste of human flesh. Because believe me, there's going to be a lot of dead people everywhere. Because they're all starving to death and killing each other over the little scraps they can find. So there'll be plenty of bodies that you can feast on if you are so inclined. But the basic idea is to keep yourself from having to do that in the first place. And you got to have that stuff on hand. And it's easy and cheap to pick up. Another thing you're going to want to make sure you have a lot of is warm clothing and blankets and stuff like that. Because the temperature will drop. It will be cold. You probably won't have electricity, so you're not going to be able to just turn the heat on in your home. So you're going to have to be prepared for winter-like situations without electric heat and all that. I have a wood stove. Wood stoves are a great idea. If you have the capability to have one in your home, you should have one. Even if you're not going to use it in a regular basis, a wood stove or a fireplace is a great way to be able to provide heat. So that's great. But also you're going to want to have like sweatshirts, jackets, a lot of blankets, stuff like that. Now you might be saying, well, damn it, James, there again, that costs a lot of money and I don't have the money to do that. I understand that. Yard sales are your best friend. Thrift stores are your best friend. You can pick up blankets at both. At yard sales, I've seen full blankets go for $1.50. You can pick up a quilt at a yard sale for $4 or $5 sometimes. That's what you want to do. Don't worry about the idea of, ooh, it's somebody else's stuff. You know, it's a yard sale or a thrift store. It's used. I don't want that. That's gross. Because believe me, when you're freezing to death, you're not going to care. You don't have to use it now. Buy it for next to nothing. Store it. When you need it, you got it. Because when you're freezing, you don't care that it's gross. You're going to put it on. You're not going to care what it is. Well, I've been out in the bush sometimes, and I make these little bitty shelters. The smaller the shelter is, the better it is. Because you have to heat all of that excess air. And your body heat will actually heat your shelter if it's small enough. So if you insulate the ground with like pine needles and leaves and stuff like that, grass, that'll stop the ground from leaching your body heat out because the ground will absolutely just rip away any body heat you got. and it'll freeze you to death. You can actually become hypothermic in above freezing temperatures if you lay on the ground at night, because it'll really suck that heat out of you. So you're going to want to stay warm. It doesn't matter about fashion. It doesn't matter what it looks like. The goal is to stay alive. So yard sales, thrift stores. So you have water, you have food, and you have heat. Those are three main priorities in this situation. Another priority is going to be protection. You need force protection in a situation like this. It does you no good to have decades worth of food if you have no way to defend it. You have to, at the very bare minimum, you have to have some sort of firearm to protect yourself. A baseball bat, not going to work, okay? Because the people coming to take your stuff are going to have guns. So you need a gun to protect yourself. I would suggest, if you are not somebody who is familiar with firearms, a shotgun is your best friend in the world. A 12-gauge shotgun will kill just about anything that can be coming through that door after you. Also, you can buy 12-gauge rounds for next to nothing. They're really cheap, especially if you get the birdshot. Now, the birdshot is not going to do as much damage as the other shot, but it will definitely deter somebody. If you've ever been shot with birdshot, you're not going to hang around. You're going to have a hell of a lot of pellets in you, and you're going to be very, very unhappy. You're going to get the hell out of there before you get shot again. And you can buy birdshot, because people use that for clay shooting, for sport. You can buy that down at Walmart by the case for next to nothing. It's not super expensive as far as ammunition goes. Also, with a shotgun, you don't have to be as accurate. If you are covering the front door of your house with people trying to break through and get to you and your food and your family, if you have a shotgun, all you have to do is sit in that living room where that door is and point the gun at the door. You don't have to be as accurate as you do with a pistol. Because if anybody comes through that door and you pull that trigger, you're going to hit them, most likely. And if you're a little bit more distance away, let's say you're about 50 yards from the person, you're kind of shooting out your window when they're coming up into your yard and stuff trying to get to you, and you're shooting out the window trying to keep them from getting to the house. At around 50 yards, you're going to be putting out a pattern of shot in between a saucer and a dinner plate size. So that gives you a lot more to play with, a lot more room to miss, where you'll actually still hit the target with some of your shot. Now, if you're shooting slugs, if you're using like deer slugs or something, that's not going to be the case. Buckshot's going to have bigger pellets and not as many as birdshot, but it's still going to do a spread. But slugs are just like a bullet, basically. So you're not going to get that kind of spread out of slugs. But that is your absolute best friend in this situation, because you have to protect what you've worked so hard to prepare. Now, once again, like I said in the beginning, if you are too close to this thing, you're dead anyway. And no amount of prepping, no amount of being ready is going to help you if you have tons of lava fall on your head. You're just done, you know. If you're too close where the air is so thick with debris you can't even breathe, you're done. You're just not going to have a chance. If you're far enough away and your problem is just trying to survive the elements, that can absolutely be done if you're smart about it. Another thing you want to stock up on is medical supplies. That's also important. If you don't live a modern lifestyle, like I live up in the mountains, so I do a lot of mountain man kind of things. You know, I'm out chopping down trees with an axe. I'm cutting firewood. I am planting orchards. I am planting, fields so that I can grow my own vegetables and stuff like that, so I have stuff to dehydrate and put away. If you live that kind of lifestyle like I do, not having electricity is not that big a deal. Yeah, it sucks to not have the air conditioner. It sucks to not have Netflix and video games and all that kind of stuff, but I can survive without it. I have a wood stove. I can still cook. I can still heat my home. I'll be fine. If you live a modern lifestyle in a city, let's say, you might have absolutely no idea how to grow crops. You might have absolutely no idea how to take care of livestock. You may not be able to go fishing and clean what you catch and eat it and all that. You may have no idea how to hunt. If you're one of those people, I would say educate yourself. Now, I know there's a lot of people, especially down where Old Boy lives in California. There are a lot of people that are tree huggers and animal lovers and all that absolutely don't believe in killing animals for food. You have these vegan types and all these people that are 100% against it. And I understand that. All I can say to you, if you're one of those people, is you better hope that you've put back a hell of a lot of dehydrated vegetables to eat, because you're not going to be able to be growing vegetables anymore for a while until the air clears. So your choice is going to be either to prep ahead of time, or you're going to have to kill something and eat it. Or you're going to have to eat something that's already been laying dead for a while. Those are your options. Or starve to death. And I don't care how big a vegan you are. I don't care how firmly you think your belief system is. Things change when your belly is gnawing at your backbone. You know what I mean? When you're so hungry, you can't even think straight, you'll do things and eat things you would never imagine that you would eat. I can catch fish, even if I don't have a fishing pole. I know how to do something called noodling, which is to catch them with your hands. You know, I can make fish traps. I can make spears. I can make arrows. I can hunt. I can trap. You know, I know how to build several different types of traps that will catch small game, that will enable me to feed myself. Learn those skills. Not just for a super volcano. Okay, I'll say that too. This is not just for in case the volcano goes off. Those skills will give you a strength and an insurance that you could never get otherwise. You know beyond a shadow of a doubt, no matter what happens, you'll be okay. You know how to take care of yourself. You could have some kind of crazy EMP situation where somebody either detonates a nuclear weapon in the atmosphere and it fries all electrical things, all circuit boards and everything, or it can be caused by a big solar flare that goes by. That happens every year. A big enough one comes by, it'll have the same effect. Really, really bad storms can knock power out and make you have to be able to survive in what you have in your home. And worst case scenario, you survive long term by the things that you've learned. Any time spent researching things that'll help you survive in a survival situation is absolutely not wasted time in my book. These are skills that our grandparents took for granted, and their parents and their parents. They all knew how to do it. You learned how to do these things basically from the time you could walk. I mean, you were very, very young when you learned how to do all these things. In our society today, at least here in America, and I imagine in most of the civilized world, it's the same way. There's a huge percentage of people that have no idea how to do any of it. If you took the average person, the average American, or probably the average British person, or some Europeans, if you took those people and you just put them on a plot of land way out in the mountains somewhere with nothing, and they had no electricity, no nothing, all they had was, you know, a couple bags of seeds and a shovel, and said, okay, and an axe, and said, okay, figure it out. I guarantee you 99% of them would be dead within 6 months. Probably wouldn't even take that long. You would have a huge percentage that would be dead within a week because they couldn't even find water. Or they drank from a stream and got dysentery and got severely dehydrated from throwing up and having diarrhea. And they ended up dying of dehydration because the people just do not have those skills anymore. I mean, I can literally go with just an axe into a forest. I can build a log cabin by myself. I have that skill set. I know how to do it. Build a little, now it wouldn't be a full-scale log cabin like you see, you know, in the brochures, because those logs are very heavy. I can't lift them on my own. But I can build what we used to call a trapper cabin, which is made with smaller trees that you can actually handle. It's the same exact design, same exact function, just not quite as strong as a full-blown log cabin, but it'll do. You know, I can go and I can build that myself in the forest with only an axe. Those are the kind of skills that are invaluable in a situation where they're called for. In normal society, that means nothing. You know, if I went to the middle of New York City or LA down by where Old Boy is, I would have no reason to have to build a log cabin. And if I walked down the street with an axe, I'd probably get arrested. But in a survival situation where you're thrown into this situation, you got to try to figure out how to live, that skill set goes from being useless to extremely valuable. Because when everybody else is dying all around you, you're alive. And you know how to take care of yourself. The last thing I'm going to say really quickly before we go is self-defense. Learn how to protect yourself. Learn how to fight. It doesn't matter how big a person is, there are weak spots. You know, I could sit here and I could go through every single one. I hold a master rank in Kung Fu. I've taught self-defense. I have my own self-defense classes and martial arts school that I ran a long time ago. I come from that background. okay? I could go through every little pressure point. I could go through all the different spots if you wanted me to, but I can say this, anywhere there's a joint, knees, elbows, wrist, ankles, is vulnerable. It only takes about 5 pounds of pressure when you're pushing a joint in the wrong direction for it to blow out. Anybody can do that if you have the skill set. Eyes, nose, throat, groin, all very sensitive. Underneath the arm, in the armpit area, very, very sensitive areas. You can drop somebody. It doesn't matter how big they are. Teach yourself those skills. We live in a great age with the internet where literally you can find anything on YouTube, just about. Or you can find a website that has that information. It's that simple. If you want to survive, knowledge is power. Knowledge will absolutely keep you alive. Now, I believe that anything is survivable if you survive the initial event. Okay, so whether it's a shooting, whether it is a natural disaster, whatever it is, if you survive that initial event, you can survive as long as you have some sort of resources that you can utilize. But you have to have the knowledge to be able to do that. You know, I remember when that Las Vegas thing happened, and everybody around me was talking about it, you know. I mean, everybody on social media, everybody everywhere was talking about it when that mass shooting happened. And one of the questions everybody kept asking each other was, oh my God, could you imagine? What would you do in a situation like that? And the overwhelming top answer that I heard over and over and over again was duck and cover, duck and cover, duck and cover, shelter in place, duck and cover. That's what everybody was saying. That's 100% opposite of what you actually want to do in an active shooter situation. Whenever you have an event like that going down, your number one priority, if you can accomplish it safely, is get the hell off the X. Okay, that's a military thing. That comes from years spent there. Get off the X, man. The X is where they're firing. That is the scene. That is where the bad stuff is going down. As soon as you possibly can, get the hell out of there. If that person's shooting directly at you, yes, duck. Get behind something for a second. As soon as that field of fire is clear and on somebody else, get the hell out of there. Run. Get off the X. That's the number one. Because as long as you're on that X and in that area, your situation is not improving. Eventually, that shooter will get to you. Get off the X. Exit the area. Quickly and suddenly. Get the hell out of there. That's what you want to do. But nobody was saying that. Everybody was saying duck and cover. They were teaching the kids at school duck and cover. Shelter in place. Get underneath your desk. Hide. Man, you should be loading those kids out the window. There's a crazy person in here with a gun. Get out of here. But instead, they have them hiding under the desk and waiting for the guy to show up. To me, it makes no sense with my background, but that's, I guess, the way it is. But that's about all the time that we have for this episode. I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and let him give his shout-outs.
And thank you, buddy. This was a kind of a different show, how to survive a super volcano, and what would happen. So you guys are probably, well, what the hell is this got to do with Halloween? It has everything to do, because it's very real and very scary. And that's why you should take our advice. We're not experts or anything. We're just giving you our opinions, and James does know what he's talking about. So just remember that. And I want to thank everybody from ParaX who's listening in right now. And I want all you guys to know that I appreciate everything, the love, the support, and I just love you guys. And another thing, if you want to check out our YouTube page, go to James Hershey's YouTube page and subscribe. You can listen to all our old shows and all the new ones. And we're almost at 4,000 subscribers now. So check that out if you guys can. And another thing is, go to our merchandise site. He'll tell you where to go. And this week I'm going to go do at Go Bar in Lucerne Valley. I'm going to be doing with Shadow's Pit and Staring into the Abyss. We're going to be doing a ghost investigation. So you guys will be bringing that out probably next week, so you guys can listen to what's going on there. But I want to tell everybody, have a great night. Misfits, Sugar Ladies, Demon Hunters, and Monster Lovers, I love you. Have a great night. Blessed be. Take care, and happy Halloween.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. We greatly appreciate every single one of you. Old Boy's going to be doing that investigation at Go Bar. We will have audio EVPs. We'll most likely have some photographic evidence as well. We usually do from these things that I'll be putting up on the YouTube channel you can check out. We will also be filming at this location. We're going to start filming at all the locations for a show coming up in the future. I'll give you more details on that when it is done, basically, when we get done filming and everything. But that's exciting. That's going to be coming up. So you'll actually be able to watch us do what we do, which is go and hunt things and sometimes remove them from this planet. Let's put it in a very kind way. We usher them to the door of existence. We say goodbye, fair sir, goodbye. You get to see us do some of that. So that's going to be very, very cool. That'll be coming soon. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where you can find the replay of every episode that we do. And you can also find all of our evidence videos and other videos we do. And soon you'll be able to find a lot of the film from the investigations and the hunts we go on. So that's going to be a lot of fun for you to check out. It's 100% free. You don't have to pay nothing for it. It's not one of those ones where you have to pay to be able to watch the videos. I put it there and I do all that work so that you can enjoy it. So please do so. Go there, subscribe, like the videos, all that stuff. I'd greatly appreciate that. The merchandise store for those who are interested in staring merch is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's Teespring, TEESPRING.com/stores with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. On there you'll find t-shirts and hoodies and posters and tapestries and iPhone cases and just all kinds of merch. There's so much stuff there. I'm starting a brand new line of horror merchandise there as well. So there'll be all kinds of really cool shirts and coffee mugs and all that kind of stuff that are horror themed that you can check out. So for those that are interested in the merchandise, I know that there's a lot of you that are, because you message a lot of time asking where you can get it. That's where you'll find all the merch. Once again, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you. And until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Happy Halloween, y'all. Bye-bye.